Supermotos have always been on my list of bikes I thought would be an absolute blast to ride, as if their sole purpose is to push you into questionable situations. Like that one friend that you love to death, but you know one day they're gonna get you in trouble.
A supermoto, in the literal sense, is a dirt bike with sport bike wheels and tires. The DRZ definitely is a hoon bike, and I find myself riding pretty recklessly most of the time. It just wants to do wheelies. You want to use that torque and hammer through the gears as quick as you can. So yeah, it is definitely, it can be a very reckless bike for the right person.
This is Logan. Logan rides a 2008 Suzuki DRZ400SM. This is also Logan.
The drifting I do is at a fairly high level, and it's very adrenaline based, and I absolutely love that adrenaline rush. And so the motorcycles, I thought I would be riding them for that adrenaline. I don't get that same adrenaline rush that I do from drifting, but I get a sense of freedom. I can hop on my bike whenever I'm feeling down or bored or whatever, or even just it's nice weather out, I'll hop on the bike and just ride. And I don't have to have a destination. I don't have to have a goal in mind. I just get on the bike and I ride, and it's very freeing. The first bike I owned was a 1988 CBR 400 RR imported from Japan. And after that, I bought a 2015 Honda Grom. The Grom was great until you realize you can only go 90 kilometers per hour. So if you wanted to go to the next city over, you probably wouldn't make it there on the highway and you'd run out of fuel. So the DRZ, the way I saw it, was a Grom on steroids. I could take it on longer trips, it had more power to hoon around with, and it was a great on-road, off-road bike from what I've seen on reviews and stuff. So when I was looking for this bike, I did a lot of research, just like anybody buying something expensive. And so I watched a lot of the YouTube videos, and everybody hates the DRZ, but still ends up buying it. They complain that it's a 5-speed, they complain that it's carbureted, they complain that it's a 20-year-old motorcycle, but then they all fall in love with it. And I find I didn't really see everybody's complaints as something that I thought would affect me. Like the 5-speed is not a big deal. I don't do a ton of highway riding. The carburetor, everybody says it has issues at high elevation or cold weather or hot weather, but again, I haven't had any issues. And I saw the fact that it is a 20-year-old bike as a bonus. Being a bit of a car mechanic, I work on a lot of Subarus, and a lot of their parts cross over for different years. Their cars haven't changed a lot, which makes it very easy to work on. And I saw the DRZ as the same thing. 20 years old, parts are going to be easy to get. The guy I bought the DRZ from was a younger kid, which seems to be the demographic for these bikes, considering they are quite a hoon type bike for the most part. So the kid did exhaust, he rejetted it, it's got the airbox mod. It had about 15,000 kilometers or so, he said. It has an aftermarket Trail Tech cluster with an unknown mileage on it. I wasn't too concerned about the unknown mileage from everything I read in reviews and saw in YouTube videos. Nobody has complaints with the engine and reliability on these. And in my experience so far, I've had zero issues. I've done an oil change and put new tires and brake pads on it. Other than that, it's been absolutely great. Starts every morning, cold or hot, no issues at all. The tires that came on it were the older Conti Supermoto tires, and the rear was absolutely bald. After a couple days of me riding it, cords started showing through. So I ordered the newest Conti tires. They're the Conti Attack SM Evos, and they're unbelievably grippy. They get super hot and sticky even after a short ride. So comparing the two bikes together, my sport bike and the DRZ, they're very similar and yet worlds apart. The sport bike, to have a ton of fun in the twisty roads, I need to be going 10 tenths super fast, not really something you should be doing on the road. Whereas the DRZ at like slightly above highway speeds in the twisty corners, that bike is an absolute blast. You go way too fast in the corner, brake hard, you feel the suspension dive, and then you just lean the bike into the corner. And you can, because of the lower power compared to the sport bike, you can accelerate a lot sooner out of the corner and just pull yourself out to the next one. The nice thing about where I am in the Okanagan here is there's mountains everywhere. So that's another reason why I got the DRZ, is because I wanted to take it on and off-road, which is what I did a lot with my old Honda Grom, is I had the Maxxis knobby tires on the Grom, did a lot of off-roading, and I wanted something a bit bigger, a bit faster, so the DRZ is great. So there's mountain trails everywhere. You can go in any direction out of town and you're into the mountains right away. So that's a great reason for the DRZ, is because it's plenty capable off-road, especially if you had a set of the S400S tires as opposed to the 400SM wheels and tires. But at the same time, we have a ton of twisty roads, back roads, highways, so it's a good mix of motorcycle riding where I am. So I rode the DRZ all the way out to Vancouver Island, which was about a 600-kilometer trip, and there was no way I could ever have done that on the Grom. And even my sport bike, it would have been very uncomfortable to do that. Whereas the DRZ on the highway was fine. It did 120, no problem. It wasn't the most comfortable thing, but between fuel stops every 120 kilometers, it gave me a nice break to get off the bike.
What RPM?
The whole way I was about 8,000 RPM, and it revs to about 9,500. It didn't mind the high RPM, it didn't burn through any oil, and it sat there comfortably, and if I needed to pass somebody, there's still just that little bit of RPM left for me to continue on. So being about 5'8", I'm a little bit on the shorter side, so the bike is a little tall. I can't flat foot it both feet, but I can comfortably put one foot down at a light. Like, it's not too tall where I'm ever struggling with it. Going off-road, you end up in situations where the ground isn't level, and so that's when it might become a little treacherous. Is that better? And then me falling over. Yeah. I think the DRZ would be a pretty good bike for beginners. It's got enough power to get you out of danger, but not enough power to get you into trouble. It's quick enough on the highway and through the city, but the power bend is very linear and it's not going to just throw you off the back of the bike. It does great wheelies. So first gear, super easy, pops up no problem. Second gear with a little clutch dump, up, and you can ride it out. I'm still learning, practicing, and so I haven't got to the balance point and ride them all the way down the road, but I can go all the way through second, no problem. For which bike is funner in the twisties, I'd probably say the DRZ, just because of the slower speeds you can have that fun at. I find myself hopping on the DRZ a lot more than the CBR. After owning my old sport bike and the DRZ, if I was to look for another bike, I don't think I would buy another sport bike. The riding position and how hard and how you have to ride 10/10ths on a sport bike is not really the riding I really want to do anymore. So if I was to buy another bike, I would definitely keep the DRZ for hooning around, but then I would probably look at like an adventure bike or something like that I could do long road trips on. So comparing the DRZ to say a KTM or a Ducati Supermoto, the reason I went with the Suzuki is because of how affordable it is to purchase initially, but then also cost of maintenance is so cheap. You know, valve adjustments and oil changes, all really the DRZ needs. They haven't changed the bike since the year 2000, so it's been 21 years almost of the same bike. Parts are readily available, parts are cheap, and it's just very easy to work on compared to some of the more high-end bikes. I find that that's such a great combination because the capability of the bike being able to go on-road or off-road, even with the sport bike wheels and tires off-road, it's surprisingly grippy. The suspension travel in the city is really nice for the bad roads, or if you have to hop up a curb or ride down a stair set. The Supermoto is a great bike for everything you want to throw at it. And a lot of guys do turn these into adventure, supermoto, off-roady bikes by adding a lot of luggage racks and crash protection and everything. And I thought about that when I first got it, but the more and more I ride it, the bike is perfect as it is. It's great on-road, like for what you use a supermoto for, I love it. And I wouldn't want to take away from the supermoto aspect to add adventure bike aspect.